also known as the cowboy's wife. I'm no expert on anything and I don't claim to be, but I have been alive for 56 years, so I have some funny stories. Come saddle up with me and take a ride, and maybe I can make you laugh or smile or cry or give you something to just think about that day. Let's do this. Okay, good morning, everyone. Trish Charleston here, the cowboy's wife, and today I have joining with me a longtime friend of my family. He was really good friends with my husband growing up, and this is Mark Henry. Welcome, Mark.
Good morning, Trish.
Good morning. So, first of all, you started out as a farm kid. Tell me a little bit about that. How you grew up.
Well, yeah, I grew up not too far from where Kevin did. We had a little farm. My dad was a part-time farmer, part-time truck driver, part-time factory worker. My mom taught public school. You know, we never went hungry as kids, but new clothes were sometimes kind of hard to find. We, pretty much a strictly working class upbringing out in the country in Southwest Missouri.
Yeah, your farm is across the street from my house now.
Yes.
So that's where you grew up. And then
Actually, that was my grandfather's farm.
Oh, that was your grandpa's.
Yes.
Where did you grow up?
Over by La Russell, in that neck of the woods.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I bought that when
my whole 32 years of married life, I have thought you lived across the street in this house. So, okay, you bought it later.
Yes.
Okay.
That was actually the whole reason I moved back to Southwest Missouri, was to buy that farm, my grandfather's farm.
Okay, well, that makes more sense. We'll come back to that.
Okay.
So you grew up there. Did you stay in the same place your whole life?
We lived in a couple of other places, but most of my teenage years were spent over there, and that's where I was when we went to high school and all.
Okay,
of that.
All right. And you went to Avila school growing up, elementary school. Yep.
Yeah, all 20 of us, and
yeah, it's very small. It's still, I think my kids had 12, maybe 15 in each class.
Yeah, we had 20 some, and we were the largest class that had ever went through Avila.
Oh, wow. And you guys had one of the most talented classes, ironically.
Ironically.
I mean, seriously, it's so cool. I mean, the kids in your class have done some of the most remarkable things, which is a testament to the Avila school, because I mean, seriously, and I'm not talking just business, but business sense. I can name 3 of you that are very successful out of you saying 20.
Yeah.
Athletics were off the chart.
Absolutely. We had several.
I mean, they were rock star athletes. I mean, it was just a really cool thing that happened there with that class.
Yeah, we were a great bunch.
We even beat Webb City in high school that year, as I recall. Your class did. So that was big. People that don't know who that is, that listen to this podcast, it's a big deal when you beat Webb.
Huge deal. Yeah.
Huge deal. But anyway, so growing up, you decided to go to Mizzou. I just recently figured out that I'm reading a book by Brandon Janis, who just happens to own the publishing company that's publishing my new book. And he called Mizzou, he also went to Mizzou, the Harvard of the Midwest. Did you know that was a thing?
Yeah, especially for journalism.
Really?
Yeah, top-rated journalism school, or one of the.
Had no idea. Boy, I really do my homework, don't I? Yeah, I had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah, great journalism school, great law school, med school. So yeah, absolutely. It's especially journalism.
So you went to school. Did you always want to go to Mizzou or not? Or no?
No, I didn't know where I wanted to go.
Okay.
I was a pretty bright kid. I pretty much straight A's all through grade school.
Yeah, you were like brilliant, not just pretty smart kid. You're being very.
Let's not get carried away. Yeah. Anyway, when I went to Carthage, I was, I didn't work real hard in high school and ended up 7th in my class. So, I did pretty well. I had my choice of where to go to school, but I ended up at Mizzou, mainly because it was closer and less expensive. Like I said, we didn't have a lot, and so went to Mizzou. Probably did a lot more fun stuff than studying. It's pretty much
No.
no doubt of that. But still did pretty well, and got a BS in financial management,
Okay.
and then went to work with a major national brokerage firm right out of college,
Okay.
um, and opened up an office for them about 30 minutes east of Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, wow.
And I
Okay,
lived
so
there
you
for
were married briefly right out of college, correct?
not quite at this point, not quite yet.
Not yet.
I
Okay,
I
that's
lived in
okay.
Ohio for a year,
Okay.
and decided I was freezing to death, and just said, "I got to get me out of here."
Yeah.
And then I moved to Arkansas for nearly a year, and had an office not too far from Fort Smith, and didn't really love it down there. Didn't really know a lot of people, and then I had a chance to buy my grandfather's farm across the
Okay.
road from you all,
Yeah.
and so I moved back, bought the farm, got married, and found a position as an investment rep with um, a, a local bank
Yeah.
in Carthage.
Okay. All right. Well, so that's how we got to know each other because you and Kevin had been friends your whole life, and
Yeah,
then you were
since we were
literally across the
met
street.
him when I
You,
was 4. So yeah,
yeah, you drove me to the hospital, in fact, when I was in false labor with Emma, I think,
yes,
right?
yes, with
Yeah.
number 2, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So we are tight. No, nobody else can say that about me.
Nope.
Nobody. So we've known each other for a long time. So so your first marriage was short lived.
Yeah.
How long were you married?
Well, we were we were married longer than we were probably husband and
To,
wife, because
right.
I mean, we got married. It was pretty much a mistake right off the bat.
Yeah.
Um, my
So
first wife, God bless her, was had some serious issues, and she didn't want to get any help. I couldn't convince her to see a therapist, or of course, medication wasn't what it is today for those kind
sure.
of things, but
Right.
we just couldn't. She was so depressed at times that she couldn't get off the couch,
Yeah.
but I couldn't convince her to get any help. Like, I didn't know how to help her. And of course, I'm a 20 something guy. I'm trying
Right.
to work. I'm trying to run a farm. I don't know anything about severe
You've
depression.
got, squirrely neighbors.
Yeah. And I just didn't know how to help. And I was the wrong guy in
Yeah.
that situation.
Yeah, that's
Um,
hard because things have changed so much now. And people then, even still now, sometimes people don't even recognize it. They just think you're being lazy or being,
mhm,
you know, weak or any of those things.
yeah.
The worst fight I have ever had with my husband, well, not maybe not the worst, but one of them was with you guys on the river. We were floating. Do you remember floating on the river? And he chucks a beer can at, I think it was at Robin. He was trying to hit Robin. He wasn't trying to hit her like hard. She was really far away. He was just trying to splash her. And we were having a wonderful time, but instead he smoked me in the back of the head. You remember
I
that?
do remember this, man.
I
Oh,
left him.
wow.
I left him on the river.
Wow.
Somebody picked him up
I had
in,
completely forgotten that
oh
story.
yeah. Yeah, he was trying to just splash her. Instead he smoked me. And boy, were there words.
Oh, I bet. I bet.
Yeah, that's been a hot minute. That was probably, well, my gosh, I bet that was 29 years
Oh, don't
ago,
make me do the math on this one.
30 years ago.
Yeah,
It's been a
I would
red
say
hot
we're
minute.
getting pretty close to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, because we still lived in our trailer house. And so, oh, yeah, that's been a while. But
Yeah.
anyway, moving on. So that didn't work out. And you were working for the investment company. And
Mhm.
then you met another woman.
Um. Yeah. I mean, I was single for a bit.
Yeah.
After Robin left, I was single for a bit. Um. And then, yes, met another woman. who was at that time had just gotten a divorce. Um, and we ended up getting married. And about that same time that we got married, I actually left the bank and opened and went out on my own
Okay.
um, and opened my own individual investment firm.
Okay. Well, gosh, I'm learning all kinds of things about you. I didn't know any of this. I didn't know you lived in Ohio or Arkansas or all these things. I thought you were just across the street my whole life.
I just appeared right there magically.
You're just there when I needed you. So how selfish of me. So 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 the reason we're even having this conversation today is that you got in a little trouble.
I
And
got in a lot of trouble.
you got in a lot of trouble. So you've openly spoken about this at colleges and the like. So this is not a secret.
You know.
And for those people that might be listening that were affected, you're very sorry for all the things that you did. But you just go ahead and tell what went down.
Okay. Okay. So let's see how to start this story. So if you look at it from the outside, about this time, I've got a beautiful wife, a beautiful adopted daughter, a beautiful home, making good money. At this time, I'm president of the Lions Club, member of Rotary, member of the Knights of Pythias. I was on a state board for Ducks Unlimited. Um, from the outside, it all looked pretty good. Um, but if we rewind a bit, when I was at the bank, I made a decision that would significantly change the course of my life and a few other people's probably. This was between marriages. And I walked back in from lunch one day to my office, and there was a stack of Walmart stock certificates there that a client of mine had signed and signature guaranteed. And I mean, essentially, they're just blank checks. And this is when I'd first moved back to Carthage, was first trying to get started. I'm on straight commission. Things are pretty tight. I've bought the farm, but buying a farm doesn't mean you own it yet.
Oh, right.
And so things are pretty tight. And I took those certificates, and I borrowed some money against them. Now, they weren't mine to do that with.
Right.
And it was that decision right there that led down the slippery slope that ended up where we are today.
Yeah. Gosh. Did your family, did you grow up in church?
I did not grow up in church.
Okay.
I went to church with lots of friends when I was a kid.
Okay.
But my family was not, we're not churchgoers in any way.
Okay.
Um, and we had a
But
lot of
you
discussions about it. We talked about it at home, but we didn't
did
go
your
to
family believe in God? Did everyone believe in God?
church. Yes, I think so. I, I don't know if my father ever spent a lot of time thinking about it. But my
Mm.
mom, I vividly remember when I was a kid, my mom and I having discussions because, things would come up. I would read things. Like I said, I was inquisitive and I read all the time. And these things would come up. And I didn't understand because I wasn't in a church and I never really went to, I went to the, vacation Bible school and stuff in the summer.
Right.
But I had never had enough, Sunday school or Bible study to ever really understand. And so I asked a lot of questions, and we had a lot of conversations. But no, I was not a churchgoer and didn't grow up that way.
Okay. So when you did this, when this started, you definitely knew the difference between right and wrong.
Oh, no doubt about it. I
No,
knew it was wrong, and well, there's two things. Um, like most folks that I have known or read about in that do take money like this, and not at gunpoint or whatever. Um, my full intention was to pay it back. That's
sure.
what all of them think. If you read any of the testimonies from any people who embezzle money, it's I'm just going to take it and I'll put it back. I'll put it back. Um, and for whatever reason, I I guess I've thought a lot about this, and these things are pretty hard to pin down
Sure.
because I think when you do something that you know is wrong, you you spend a lot of time trying not to think about what you've done.
Oh, I'm
It's
sure. Yeah.
really hard to not think about it and not dig into it too much because then what do you do if so you work really hard at that part of it. But I do think to some extent, for whatever reason, I had a sense of entitlement rather than a sense of responsibility to my clients to some extent.
Well, and you also had a totally different lifestyle rocking right then that you were trying to keep
Oh,
up with. I
absolutely.
mean, seriously, that's a lot, and that I think, I mean, obviously this is a larger scale, but look at the Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, you start doing stuff like that, and it's just going to be a giant snowball
And that's
effect.
exactly what it does is it snowballs.
Yeah, and it
And and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, I do want to clarify, and this is not a justification,
sure.
uh, but a clarification on that. There were some folks like Bernie Madoff, for example, who it was all a scam. There wasn't a single human being that put money with him that got it back. I had over 1,000 clients, and I took money from 10. So that does not justify the money of the 10, but the only thing I will say, and again, no justification, but my goal was still always at least what I told myself was I'm going to put it back. This is all going to go back. I'm going to put the money back.
So it
But of
kept
course, that never happens.
sure it kept snowballing, and so and you're feeling all of this, I'm sure, pressure, and if you weren't a religious person, you wouldn't know at the time, where this is coming from. Guilt is the Holy Spirit. I mean, guilt is, and pride is the devil. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're fighting these two battles in your head, that's a good thing, Mark. That means you got something in there that matters. So
Well,
this whole
uh,
time,
the devil was winning at that point in time,
yeah,
though, I'm
yeah,
afraid.
he,
And my pride would not allow me to get out because I
yeah,
knew what that was going to entail.
yeah. Well, and I'm
And
sure you might were afraid you'd lose your wife, you'd lose your daughter, you
which,
all of
which
those things.
which all is what happened anyway. So
Right.
and
Well,
and I
so
should have known that was the case.
sure.
And I mean, and honestly, you know, sure, it all looked good from the outside, as I said before, but I mean, I couldn't sleep. I was one donut away from a coronary. I, I mean, I was a mess, and I honestly have come to believe that had I not got caught when I did, I was a year or two away from a major heart attack or stroke anyway. So thank God it happened when it did. Number one, it probably saved a lot of people a lot of financial trouble,
So
and
and so you and I spoke about this before, but I mean, the reason you stopped is because you got caught. But you said
Sure.
but you couldn't stop without getting caught because of this snowball. I mean,
Yeah.
there was no way to just
The
I mean,
only
I
way
guess you
to
could have
end it,
just confessed. I mean, that would
yeah,
have been, just say,
no,
okay,
no, and that would have been the ideal, I think, would
right.
have,
Well, yeah,
but I
yeah.
don't think that there was no other way to get out.
Okay,
It,
so you just said this just triggered something for me. So this is you said that would have been the ideal. So the way that we come to Jesus is through confession. I think that's and Jesus came to free the captives. And I think what people don't understand is, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, you know, people tried to take this literally to mean in prison, which you got to visit, but but we're not just prisoners of prison. We're prisoner. You were a prisoner of that. I mean,
absolutely.
you were held captive right there by that and could not get out without coming clean.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
then
well,
and didn't you just I got to know, did you just immediately feel a sense of relief? I mean, almost a sense of relief, or were you still just freaking out?
let me back up just one
Yeah,
second, and then
please.
we'll get there.
Yeah.
So, not too long. It might have been a year or two prior to when I got caught. Um, my wife at the time came to me and said, she said, "It's obvious you're miserable. You don't have to do this. We don't have to do this." Meaning, we don't have to, live in the big house, et cetera, et
Live
cetera.
this way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
live
she
this
did
way.
she know what was happening? Not
No
you.
idea.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah. But she
So
could see you were imploding.
yes, yes,
Yes.
couldn't sleep, just a
Yeah.
mess, stressed out. And she said, "Well, let's go do something else." But again, that's not possible. You can't do it. Not without confession, which I knew was going to, because basically I'm confessing to the fact that I've stolen money that I can't pay back. So that's going to imply jail time. That's going to imply the loss of my wife, my daughter, you know, some of my friends, all of that. I could see where it needed to head. And while
Well,
I
and you're
wanted that,
also still trying to keep up with the Joneses. I mean, like you were we came to your house for parties and things, and I mean, there was a giant painting of your wife on the wall. I mean, you were doing some crazy stuff that were not it was not the person that I knew.
yes,
It was like seriously, and we were all concerned whether you knew it or not. We're like, what's happening? Who is this guy? Because this wasn't you. I mean, it just
yeah,
wasn't you.
yeah. And boy, I wish I would, somebody would have had a conversation with me at the time. I don't know what I could have done,
That's
and I
funny
don't
because
know who I could have told, you know,
no, well, I
but
mean, you could have told your best friend, but it might have been better for your heart, you
yes.
know. But anyway, so all right, keep going.
Okay. So, so we're headed down that path, I guess. And yeah, I know. And I didn't know, again, a lot of it is, again, it's pride because you don't want the embarrassment. You don't want
No,
to admit
right? Yeah,
that
because we were all there. I mean, we were all
I've
there
done
seeing it.
something terrible. This is not on any, obviously,
Yeah,
but my pride wouldn't let me do that.
sure,
And and like I said, obviously the devil was winning at that point. Pride
right.
was beating that out. It was it was greed,
Yeah,
and there's no other way to put it.
no.
So yeah.
So when you actually got caught, and so how long? So you had to go to prison.
Oh,
I mean,
okay. So when I knew I was gonna get caught. I mean, because obviously, there starts to be questions asked, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and so I knew I was going to get caught. At this point, I'd still not told anybody, but I knew I was going to get caught. And My first thought, and this is not something I usually put in the in my in my talk, but I'll tell you. My first thought was, well, I'll just end it.
Oh, Mark.
That was my first thought, and gave that a shot. And I was too much of a coward to do that.
You know what? You're smart.
Um, and
Oh.
so that didn't work out. So I'm like, okay. So finally, we get to a point where I've got no choice, and I tell my wife, and we start the whole process of
Oh, you told her. Oh, you
oh,
told
I
her.
told her.
You had to tell her. I mean, I
I had
guess.
no
Yeah.
choice because it was going to be in the newspaper,
Yeah.
you know.
Best
But
you
I
tell
did
her.
not tell her until
The
the
last
last
minute.
possible second that I could have. I still couldn't tell her or anybody else until the very last second. And and so then, of course, it takes a while. It's the feds. Nothing happens quickly.
Right.
Um, and so, of course, that job's gone. So I mean, I went and got another job while we worked through the legal process. Um, and but eventually, sentencing day comes. I go in. My lawyer tells me, worst case scenario, you might get 42 months. I got 78 months.
Yeah.
78.
You got. I just remember 7. I just remember the number 7 for some
Yes.
reason.
Yeah,
Was it
yeah,
7 years? I mean, was it
yeah,
7 years?
yeah. 7 and some change
Yeah.
is what I was sentenced to. Yes, and let me tell you, prison sucks.
Yeah. I bet. I bet. And the whole time you were there, I mean, I wrote you letters, and not the whole time you were there, but you and I conversed through letters,
Uh-huh.
which was a very, uh, I mean, it meant a lot to me. I mean, you always wrote me back, and I
Well,
know that.
however much it may have meant to you, it meant more to me.
Well, thank you. But Jim was relentless. I know that he was down there with you constantly,
Constantly.
and
And my mom.
your mom came constantly. And so in that time, and you learned all kinds of things while you were there, didn't you? I mean, you became quite the gardener, as I recall.
I did. I did. I got a master's degree in history. So
That's cool. So, but while while you were there, obviously it wasn't worth it.
no. Oh God, no.
Yeah, I mean, not even kind of worth it.
Yeah.
But so if you had to go back, and would you have confessed? Would you? Obviously,
Oh.
you would have never
mm,
done it, but if you could go back and
Yeah.
be in that same situation, would you wait, or do you think you would have confessed?
Well,
Because the outcome would be the same, right?
maybe not. Not if you did it earlier.
Right.
If it wouldn't have been as much or gone on as long, if I had walked in somewhere and confessed, you probably would have went better on me. But that's a counterfactual that doesn't work at
Right.
all because again,
Yeah.
my pride would have never allowed it.
Yeah. That is just sad.
So
So that when
so
they took you
it
to
was something
jail,
that was, well, theoretically, yes, knowing what I know now, blah blah blah, but I didn't know and I didn't understand. Um,
so if we're talking to someone today that's doing exactly what you did, or in this terrible situation, whether it be, this, or like last week I spoke to a girl that was being held captive basically in social media. She was uh, adult entertainment, and it was obviously wrecking her life.
mhm.
And I mean, and that obviously this was wrecking yours. I mean, what was it like to walk into prison knowing you're not leaving for over 7 years? And I can't do math, so I can take it the
It
months.
was well, obviously, at that point, that's fear of the unknown. You have
Oh
no
yeah.
idea what this is going to be
So you
like.
were just completely
I mean,
terrified.
I didn't know people who had been in prison. I didn't have anybody to go say, "Hey, what's it going to be like?"
Right.
I've got nothing to base this on. So I
So you
mean,
were in federal prison too, so
mhm,
right? So
yeah.
that was a little bit better, I mean, of the two or not?
Oh, I think it depends. Um, um, so I was in a federal the it's a federal prison, but it's a hospital in Springfield, Missouri, um, and because I still at the time when I was sentenced, uh, I still had a wife and my daughter, and so the judge basically said, "Okay, you can go there." And I was part of a work cadre that that worked at the prison. I think it depends on where you are because each state does prison a little differently. Um, the feds that's a medium security facility. The feds are, um, and they are designed to handle all kinds of people because murderers get sick in prison. So you know, um, I
No.
was I was not at. There's certainly no such thing anymore as club fed.
Oh,
There was
sure.
a time when some of the federal prison camps were pretty easy for white collar criminals. That's not where I was now. And another misconception I think is that at least federal prison has nothing to do with rehabilitation. They do not care.
Oh, really?
No, it is not about rehabilitation. If you want to be better, do better, learn something, make some use of your time while you're locked up, that is completely on you. There is they're a holding facility, and that's it.
Wow.
Uh,
Are they kind? Are they nice to
oh,
you or
that varies
per
person
person?
to person.
Yeah.
Yes, there are some of the staff was incredibly kind.
Yeah.
Some of them were some of them could have come and joined me on my side.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So
But
when you finally got caught, did you sleep better or worse? Were you scared?
oh, I don't think that because of course the first thing after you get caught is okay. Well, now you know, of course everybody hates me, because I don't know who's gonna talk to me, not talk to me. I'm of course scared to reach out to anybody.
Sure.
Um, so I simply changed. I mean, there was the okay, well, it's that part's over, you know, but you didn't know how. I didn't know how long I was going to go to prison. I
Sure.
didn't know if I was going to keep my marriage. I didn't know how I was going to get through this. There was just, and the unknown is one of the scariest things any of us can face is
Right.
you know what's next, and I had no idea.
Yeah.
So it was I probably didn't sleep well until I'd been in prison for a while. I mean, honestly, and then it got to a point where okay, this is what it is. I've got however many years to get through, and and I made a decision. I was going to try to make the best use of my time that I could, um, and that's probably when the stress started to melt away a little bit. Was once I realized, okay, you're going to make it through this, and no matter all of the other terrible things that are probably going to happen, you're going to get through this, and it's going to be okay. But it took a long time, Trish.
Yeah. So at any of this during any of this time, did you think about God? Were you praying at all? Did you feel like he was with you? Did you feel but
Okay,
I mean, I know
yep.
you didn't have a close relationship with him, but did prison
Prison
did
changed that
anybody talk to you about him while you were there?
at prison in prison, yes.
Yes, yes.
And so uh, and that was one of the things that I did is the number one thing in prison, of course, is boredom. So you're
Sure.
looking for things to do.
Right.
And when I first got there, And one thing that most people probably don't know, but there are a lot of so-called prison chaplains.
Yeah.
Mm, a lot of inmates. That's what they do. They pick up the Bible and they read it constantly and they talk about it constantly. And there's a lot of jokes in prison that, those prison chaplains, because we're talking about inmates, not the actual prison chaplain.
Sure. Right.
Those guys, a lot of them, they leave the Bible on the counter when they walk out the door.
Oh.
There's a lot of that kind of
Right.
stuff
Sure.
because it's a way to pass the time, and
Well,
they think
there's a
folks
lot of people
may.
that do that on Sunday. I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
I
That's
mean
true.
that's
But again, the number one thing in prison is boredom, and so as much as anything, I started going to a Bible study because it was something to do.
sure.
And I made a good friend who, as a matter of fact, he actually, the very first time I did speak to a group at Missouri State, he went with me. He was the other speaker that day,
Oh.
and his father is prosecuting attorney in Arkansas,
Oh.
um, and but he had got wrapped up in drugs, and he ended up with more time than he did. He got almost 10 years,
Oh.
and so we had become friends, and he's the one who had sort of encouraged me to come to the Bible study. And so we started doing, we did Bible study every week, we did church every week, and I started to develop a relationship with God. And I was baptized in prison,
Oh.
uh, in a stock tank out back of the chow hall, and it was, there was a lot of thought, a lot of soul searching, a lot of asking for forgiveness, that kind of thing.
I didn't know any of that, Mark. That's unbelievable. I don't think that would have happened if you hadn't gone to prison. Do
Oh
you?
no, I know. I don't necessarily think so. No, I
Well,
think you're right.
especially if you would have continued to just keep doing what you were doing,
Yeah.
and there's just no
Oh, yeah. The
way.
last thing I would have wanted to do was I mean, I was probably a little afraid if I stepped into a church, lightning hits me immediately, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I,
no, I mean, you weren't definitely weren't no, I mean, but I mean, God doesn't give up on us even if we're
no,
doing
and I know that, but
horrible things,
my
but
thought at the time would have been,
oh, yeah,
I
it
can't
was the
step in a
farthest
church.
well, it's farthest thing from your mind. Oh
Yes,
my gosh, I did not know that. That is amazing. So, was part of your did you have to pay restitution? How did that work?
I'm still paying restitution
You'll be paying restitution, like,
for the rest
so
of my life.
for the
Yes,
rest of your life to the people back? I mean,
yes.
you paid them back?
Yes.
Oh,
Well, I'll be honest. Nobody ever explains to you how it works.
oh,
I mean, they confiscated everything that I had at the
yes.
time and sold it. They had an auction and sold all my stuff. But of course, that didn't fully repay everything. And then essentially, what happens is, as soon as I got out, I began paying restitution, and it goes to an office in the federal courthouse in Kansas City. And my assumption is that somehow gets paid back to somebody.
So,
Now,
hopefully, they're
there
paying
are,
the victims.
I know that a lot of the victims got reimbursed right off the bat because there was insurance that
Oh,
covered
right.
that. I don't, I think that most of them would have recovered their investment. Um, but nobody ever told me that. But I
Sure.
think they would have recovered that through an insurance, and that most of this money goes to them now.
To
But
pay
I
back
don't
the
know that
insurance.
for sure because
Yeah.
nobody has ever told me how
Well,
that
that would be
works.
nice to know. I mean,
It would be very nice to know,
it
but
would be nice to know.
you can't get you can't get a straight answer. So I honestly do not know, and I've never obviously spoken to anybody, so I don't, that was one of the people that I stole from. So I don't know what happened. I
Yeah.
don't know how it works.
Well, and I just hope that that those people understand that it wasn't personal. It wasn't, you weren't
yes.
picking people. You weren't. I mean, you know that. If you could give them a message, what would you tell them now?
Uh, I mean, what can you say?
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
dreadfully
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm dreadfully sorry for what I did. There's no doubt about that. And if I had the capacity to to make it right with them, I would do that.
Yeah.
Um, I thought about that a lot, and I've always been hopeful that the SIPC insurance did pay them back, and I know it wasn't. That's not. I know they probably felt violated, and that
Sure.
has affected them in those kind of ways. But
Yeah.
what can I say? But I'm
That
sorry.
right. That's what you say. And that's the
Yeah.
thing that I think is so important about God and the reason Jesus died. I mean, because we're all going to do stupid things. I mean, and he knew it. I mean, we
Mhm.
can't, we're just born sinful people. But I love your story because my gosh, y- the only thing that matters is where we go when we die. That's
Mhm.
all that matters. This stuff doesn't matter. And I now, okay, so your life now, you have a beautiful wife. You have, I don't know where, I haven't been to your new home. I went to your wedding. You had a beautiful wedding. You're happier than I've ever seen you ever. And you married a preacher's daughter,
I did.
ironically. Yes. And so, I mean, you've kind of come full circle here. Hopefully that your testament can tell people that you have to get out. The key is to confess. Just confess
Yes.
because you're in
Yes.
bondage
Yes.
anyway. I
Get
mean, you're
get
already
out
in.
and get out now
Get
because
out.
that's the only way you can move on.
The
That's it.
only way.
Otherwise, you're a prisoner to this. So even if you're going to prison, who cares? You
Yeah.
got to get out of. You can't start the process of getting out of prison until you confess.
And,
There is no other way.
and that's with everything. That is with drug addiction. The things that I was talking about earlier with my sweet friend that was in this horrible, sex industry, the drugs, alcohol, pornography, gambling, all of these things. We're doing any of these things that we're overeating,
Mhm.
all the things that we're stuck. The only way to get out is to just, away from me, Satan, and do
Exactly.
it, but confess it,
Yes,
confess
you
it.
have to admit the
And
problem, not just to yourself, but to
to
everybody.
somebody, you got
Yes,
to tell somebody, but start with God, you tell
yes, absolutely.
absolutely tell him. And then I think I just love the way that your life has completely turned around. I mean, every time I talk to you now, you're happier. And it's not, I don't know who that guy was that and I'm so sorry that we did not just pull you over to the side and say, what is happening? Because we were
As
all
you said,
doing
Chris,
it behind your back.
I don't know if it would have done any good, but
Literally, I remember standing in your home with, I think it was maybe probably Jim and his wife, Steve and his wife, and we're all looking at each other going, "What's happening?" And we should have done it to you. I mean, we should have done it to you, and I'm sorry that we didn't, because
wow,
that's on us.
you probably know that that would not have helped at that point in time
Well,
because I
maybe
was not
you don't
prepared
until
to do that.
you got friends for a reason, and we were all pretty good friends, and so I feel terrible about that. But I think that, I mean, obviously, it all worked out for the greater good,
Absolutely,
and it's horrible that people lost money, but I hope that they were reimbursed. But you say you gained your soul, Mark, and I mean that's the most important thing. And your sweet wife, and please tell her I said hello. I just
that's
love
it.
her. I mean, she's so kind, and I just it's a beautiful story, and I'm glad that you took the time to share it with me today and everyone else. And I hope that if it helps one person to stop
Absolutely.
doing what they're doing, then
That's why I do this.
yeah.
The only reason that I talk and do these things is because hopefully one human being will say either it will keep them from making that wrong first decision, or if
Yeah.
they've already made a bad decision, help
Just
them
own it.
and go the other way.
Yes.
I will say one other thing, Trish, is one of the things that really drew me into Bible study, and into church when I finally did begin to go, was I looked at the people that stuck by me and said, "Okay, you've done something terrible, but that doesn't mean you're not my friend, and I'm going to
I
do my
love
best
you
to help
anyway.
you."
Yeah, I
Yes,
love you anyway.
and the people that stuck by me were were people that had faith.
Yeah.
And the people that said, I don't want anything to do with you, were people who absolutely did not. And
Well, that's the whole thing about being a Christian is that you love everybody always, and it
and
doesn't matter what they did, and you love them right where they are. You
yes,
know, you love them where they are, and it's super hard. And when people
yeah,
hurt you, you
mm,
know, it's super hard to forgive them. But if you're not forgiving them, then Jesus died for nothing. And
that's
so, I mean,
exactly right.
that's exactly what it's
And,
all
and
about.
God, people have a tendency to grade sin. This
Oh,
sin is worse than this sin is worse than this sin.
yeah,
God
there's
doesn't
not
say that. It
all
is
the same.
sin is sin, and
Sin is sin. That's right. And that's probably why we didn't say anything at your parties because we were all there.
that's a true story.
So we were doing it too. Well, I am so, gosh, I'm honored that you talked to me, and I'm so sorry you were in having those horrible thoughts about taking life. I did not know that part, and that just breaks
Well,
my
and
heart.
again, I'm not trying to.
Oh, I know,
I
but
don't need sympathy. I'm good.
I know you are, but
But it,
golly, that
but
was
I promise you that
unexpected.
it
Oh,
was pretty touch and go there for a minute.
oh, I'm sure.
Uh,
I mean,
and,
I'm sure.
and
But
and and that's another thing that if anybody has those thoughts, just it's not worth it. It absolutely is not. That is not the way to go. That is not an answer. There is another way. You may not see it. You may not see a way out,
yeah,
but
that
there
was
is one.
yeah,
You,
and there's so many people that you can talk to. And
yeah,
sometimes, you know, we talk about churches and church is the answer. Church is not the answer. God is the answer. You know,
absolutely.
I'm not a I I've had my own struggles with churches, and I love church. We're all supposed to be in church. I mean, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be in church. You're supposed to be with fellow believers, but churches are just a bunch of broken people, and so none of them are going to be perfect. So you've got to
That's
realize
exactly
that
right.
it's not about you. You know,
Yes.
you've just got to work around some stuff. But you also have to stand up for what you believe in, and so sometimes you have to leave places that you feel aren't,
Sure.
you know.
No, absolutely. I agree
And so
100%.
you, but the reason we're the body of Christ. I love that you said that those people loved you through it, and I know exactly who you're talking about because they are rock stars for Jesus,
Absolutely.
and that's just so huge because I mean, that's the number one commandment, you know,
Hmm.
love one another. Just
Absolutely.
love one another. And
Yeah.
so,
And, and
well,
and and you and Jim and Tom,
oh gosh, Tom, I
you
love Tom.
and my friend Ben, their love is what got me through that and got me,
Oh,
where I am now, and I am happy now. So,
yes.
if it wasn't for them, I don't know how I would have gotten through it. But to all of you, that
Thank
was the
you.
most important thing, no doubt. Love is the answer. There is no
Love
doubt.
it really is. Well, I love you and I am so
Love you, Tricia.
thankful for you, and tell Christina I said hello,
I most certainly
and
will.
thank you for this podcast today. Hold tight and I'm going to tell everyone goodbye. We'll talk
Okay.
soon.